When it comes to kids and online safety, do we need a passport for social media? Following the ban on social media for kids in Australia, the House of Lords overwhelmingly voted in favor of a similar proposal here in the United Kingdom. And the UK government has now launched a landmark consultation asking for the opinions of everyone to give input on whether we should be banning social media for teens here in the UK. Now, the European Commissioner for Human Rights has said that social media bans are not nuanced, that they don't consider human rights issues, access to information issues. There have been letters from dozens and dozens of child protection charities, national academies of science, have all spoken out against the limits of bans and the unintended consequences of bans. Obviously, there's a lot going on with social media, and it's important to recognize that although the harms are real, there are also benefits to social media for young people. And so any investigation needs a careful examination of both the harms and benefits, as well as targeted solutions that can help young people navigate online spaces safely. So I would say that parents, and I'm a parent myself of a 3- and a 5-year-old, and the 5-year-old is on a YouTube Kids channel, so I'm keenly aware of some of the harms of social media. I study misinformation, extremism, propaganda, and so by all means, I'm concerned about what is happening in online spaces. But at the same time, cutting teens off from social media is not necessarily a nuanced measure that's going to empower future generations. So if we look at some of the science that's been done here at Cambridge and around the world, it's actually a very nuanced picture. So on one side, we're seeing reports of real harm of social media on the mental health of teens. And on the other hand, we're seeing benefits of social media in terms of social support and connection. The national academies all around the world have reviewed the evidence. And generally, what they found is that there are small negative correlations between the use of social media and the mental health of adolescents. There are also harms that have been recognized. And it's only been recently that causal studies have been conducted, randomized trials, which have found that logging off from social media benefits the mental health of adolescents. But of course, that doesn't necessarily justify blanket bans. When you look at bans, for example, school-wide restrictions or bans on the use of mobile phones and social media in school, these studies actually find no effect when they compare schools that have those bans in place and schools that don't have those bans in place. They find no effect on the mental health of adolescents. And that could be for lots of reasons. Maybe they're using their phones before school, after school, but it could also be because it's psychologically a very different proposal. If you voluntarily detox from social media, it might benefit you, but if you're being told that you cannot use social media and that your autonomy is being restricted, that might actually have a different psychological impact and maybe even cause harm for some youth who are using social media for mental health support, for example. So for all of those reasons, I think we need to look at both the unintended as well as the intended consequences of such proposals, but at present there just isn't very good evidence for the efficacy of social media bans. And so although we've talked about real harms, whether that's sexually explicit content, cyberbullying, misinformation, negative social comparisons, body image issues, all of those harms are real. But we shouldn't forget that there are also benefits for young people. Young people find social support online. They connect with like-minded others, especially minorities, LGBTQ+ communities. Sometimes their only support groups are the ones that they can connect with online. And so you'd be cutting off communities from vital support. Digital humanitarianism can go viral online. There are lots of positive use cases for the internet and social media. And so what we need to do is use a scalpel to eliminate the harms while preserving the benefits. So aside from the issue of whether there's evidence that would speak to the efficacy of a ban, there's also the longer-term perspective that a ban just postpones the problem, right? And so we're telling young people not to use social media, you're not allowed to use it, but then we're not preparing them for the future. I mean, the future is going to be technology, AI chatbots, AI integration with other systems. I mean, the technology that we're dealing with right now isn't going to go away. And if the UK is lowering the voting age, which it's planning to do, to 16, then teens are going to be voting for the first time. We're also going to go on social media for the first time, which will be a dangerous cliff edge scenario where those two are coming together. And I think that's a dangerous cocktail that we want to avoid. We want to prepare future generations. We don't want to postpone this problem. We don't want to run away from technology and bury our heads in the sand. We want to build long-term digital resilience. We want kids from a very early age to be able to navigate online spaces safely. So rather than a wholesale ban, which is rather unnuanced because a lot of the harms on social media are unevenly distributed in the population, right? Some groups are experiencing disproportionate harm and some are using it mostly for beneficial purposes. We need a nuanced kind of scalpel-based approach that eliminates harms while preserving some of the benefits. And the way I propose of doing that is through a two-pronged proposal, and that includes long-term investment in digital resilience for kids throughout their school years. And the other is very strict regulation around safety by design principles. So to start with the first, I want to introduce the idea of a social media passport, which is based on a program of controlled, gradual exposure to digital technology. So rather than hiding from it, we should be facing it head on. Kids as early as 4 are starting to develop ideas about truth and falsity, and they need to understand how to navigate digital devices. And so what I'm saying is that, in reception, and one of my kids is in reception, they should start learning how to use digital devices, maybe to look at family photos, or to use it to help with reading or drawing, and that will be the only use case. And then as we progress throughout their educational curriculum, we graduate to maybe using digital screens for watching short videos, for example, educational videos, right? There's a huge literature that actually demonstrates the benefits of public broadcasting and educational forms of entertainment. And then later on, they could go to a simulated social media network, maybe one that just operates within the school, to learn about what happens when you post images online. Is that safe? What's involved in that? What are the privacy issues? And how do you talk to other people on social media? And that could just be contained within a school before they actually go on a real social media network. So just as you can't drive a car without a license, maybe we shouldn't be able to navigate social media without a social media passport that you can actually use to log on. And maybe there should be even verification on that so that we can navigate our digital spaces safely. And this is not to say that adults couldn't benefit from social media passports as well. I'm sure they can. But if we're looking to the future, I think maybe that's what we should be doing in schools in terms of long-term investment in digital resilience, because technology isn't going to go away, and we need to empower future generations, not restrict their autonomy to deal with what is inevitable, which is the role of technology in all of our digital lives. And the second principle I want to talk about is this idea of safety by design. So I'm not suggesting that we put the onus on overwhelmed parents and teachers. I fully understand concerns that parents have. I have difficulty keeping up with all the things that we need to do for our kids, right? So we need to hold social media companies accountable. There's no discussion about that. But rather than shifting the burden onto kids, we need to shift the burden back on social media companies and say, look, you need to create products that are safe by design. And I'm talking about entirely different feeds that don't use algorithms that maximize engagement. So these are PG-13 rated feeds that work very differently from feeds for adults, right? Where the content is clean, there's no violence, there's no explicit sexual content, there is no misinformation, no extremism. It's heavily regulated. It's a safe feeds for kids, a safe space that they grow up in, and still preserve the benefits from using social media to coordinate their social life, to connect with other people, to participate in positive campaigns, to engage in social and political issues that the world's currently facing, right? We need to give them voice and agency, but in a safe space. And that's one way to do that. And a ban or a temporary restriction could be used as a lever to force compliance. So people might say, okay, but social media companies are not going to do that. Well, in that case, we can say if you don't comply with building products that are safe for kids, then we're going to restrict access until you can pass transparent audits that actually show that your feeds are safe. That's what we do with other companies when their products aren't safe, right? Car manufacturers have to make sure that their cars are safe or they get pulled. We need to do the same thing. But here we're using a ban as a smart lever, a temporary injunction, rather than saying to kids, you can't be in social media until you're 16.